Hi, I'm Anitra Brown, editor of the New Orleans Tribune. Today, TRIB Talk is sitting down for a one-on-one with our mayor, Latoya Cantrell. I want to talk to you a little bit about, your the administrative team that you've assembled, and I'm just gonna, I've watched this process go along even before the inauguration. I'm talking right now about some of the criticisms I recall seeing in mainstream media, that you were taking too long to assemble a transition team. Now you're taking too long to name top administrators. But what's been your process with that, and where you're at right now? What are your goals, and how you're feeling about the group of people that you've assembled to help move New Orleans forward?
Well, first of all, really I appreciate the opportunity on this. The criticisms have been real, but the reality is, it takes time to find good people. And most often, good people are already employed. And so you have to go through a process of respecting the roles that they already are in, confidentiality that they may not want, their current employer or the previous employer to know. And then giving them the latitude to really make the decision, not begging someone to work for the city, but at the same time really wanting to give the best possible, the lay of the land of the existing conditions and what you will inherit. But I also have to say, the climate that I was in, from the issues after the election, with being accused of, the credit card stuff, like I was doing something illegal, that was a shadow. That was a little, shadow over me. And it would make some folks maybe think whether or not, they want to work for the city of New Orleans, who has a history, No, but these are real issues.
Right.
And, but the good news about it, we had good people who wanted to work for the city, who understood that it was more politics than anything. And we were able to hire up as it relates to it. But on the front end, the negativity, it does work against you.
Yeah.
Even when we say we want to hire great folks, and it works against us. And it works against not Latoya Cantrell, the city of New Orleans.
Right. And so really specifically, I also want to ask you about the Warren Wiley, the offer, and then the reception of that offer, and just, your thinking as that played out.
No, thank you for that again. So in leading up to making that decision, and it was several interviews and multiple conversations, even like with my subcommittee on public safety. And as I was thinking about, this hire, I was also bouncing it off, which I thought was bouncing it off, in the community, getting feedback.
Right.
And so some of the feedback, a lot of it, was positive. I'm like, okay, because of his experience with FEMA, post NOPD, and also going away and getting experience as it relates to Homeland Security. So qualifications, absolutely, intact. So as I was bouncing it off, I did hear one little rumbling of, wait a minute, you may want to rethink it because. But it wasn't enough. I didn't feel a groundswell, like really about it. And but as we moved through, and I started now hearing from the community, like in droves about it. And as I was about to move forward, and like a day or two before, maybe a day before, I met with some of the family members who expressed some concern. And I felt necessary to pause. And I didn't want to meet with them and then the next day even give a thought like they didn't matter, or their feelings didn't matter, because they're real. And then I started to do my own little due diligence on my own process. And I worked with the peacekeepers.
Okay.
And I asked them to do some mediation with the family, with Mr. Riley. And then as I moved through that process, I just saw and I recognized that.
And did anyone know that there was that process,
Well,
other than those involved in it, For instance, that you brought in the peacekeepers to mediate with the family and Mr.
Well, the
White?
community, those who cared about it, I thought they knew about it, and it wasn't a show. Like, so I wasn't trying to broadcast that I was trying to do mediation, but I was trying to do mediation because these matters are real, and they're real, like, to real people. And what it did was make me focus on the trauma that our people have endured in post-Katrina. That's not just tied to Danziger Bridge, but that we haven't dealt with trauma. And not only that it's real, but people in our city kind of have felt like government has done this to them. Government isn't focused on trauma, hasn't focused on our young people who, post-traumatic stress disorder is real. And it was something that government was doing to them. And it's something that, as mayor, I didn't want this to be another thing that government was doing to our people who were suffering. But one, that government will listen and understand that we who have been here on the ground, we haven't left. We haven't had the opportunity to move, live somewhere else, decompress. But we've been in the trenches dealing with it. And the people who were coming to me from the community represented these folks who have been here, long haul, in the trenches, no matter what, fighting for things to get better. And so at the end of the day, it had to be about the people and not about one person.
Gotcha.
And so I had to make that decision.
Yeah. I'm just intrigued to kind of hear about that process behind some of the things that you did, the mediation and that kind of thing. Because if from the outside looking in, there may have been a tendency to assume that it was just sort of this knee-jerk reactionary kind of thing. And what you're describing was anything but that, so.
No, and that time when I said pause, that's when I engaged. Yeah. And you have to let that process kind of unfold. But it did show, the people who really care, that they, not only that they matter, but I really was able to see and feel the emotions of folks on both sides.
Absolutely. Wow. So I gotta ask you about the Confederate monuments.
Oh Lord, yes, ma'am.
Now look, this is what I'm thinking. If I were mayor, that was another administration. I'd have came in and left that alone. But why? What has been your? And there are people, quite frankly, in the Black community that aren't happy about it. What's been your impetus behind kind of reopening?
Well, one, I don't think it's reopening. I think it's something that was left in my lap and that I have to own because it's real. And there are people in our community that cared about the statues and where they are and where they go. And they matter too. And so I felt the need to listen to them as well and to tell them, hey, I'm willing not only listen, but you all meet, you take your minutes, your meeting minutes, your sign-in sheets. The only caveat is the one, they're not going back, where they were. And you got to pay for it, meaning out of storage and wherever they go, you have to assume that cost and see what you come up with. And so that's happening. I've gotten some recommendations, but you know what? What I've had to do is get legal on it and to say, even based on these recommendations that I know people are wanting, those who care about them, what's the feasibility of me actually being able to execute? Like, what are the constraints? How would I be able to? Yeah. So legal just, they're working on a briefing, but what I'm told, and I'll make this public as I go through the process and divulge to the public as well as to the council, like what our options are. Right. And so what I'm kind of seeing, the options are limited. Because the city council declared them a nuisance, the law states that they have to kind of be in this warehouse. And that they can't go back anywhere. Yeah. No matter what. So it's a process though. It is, but there are things though that I'm learning that I didn't know on the council even voting. And some of my colleagues who voted, I voted too, but who said, well, we're not erasing history. They can go, maybe somewhere else, but not in these prominent spaces. And they are nuisances where they are. But I didn't know, as the law states, that, almost are confined to these storages. But we're digging through that, and once we get all of the information, I'll make sure that the public is, you know, informed, and particularly those who want the monuments. We can't loan them.
Right, okay.
I mean, that's what the law says. They can't be. Once they're declared a nuisance, you can't loan them. Now, if we voted to take them down and didn't declare them a nuisance, then you could loan them. So I'm going to present all this into the
Okay.
council, who would be able to say, you know what, if they're interested in moving them, then they can go back and not declare them a nuisance, but not put them back. But so it's a lot of hoops, it seems, and it's not as easy as I thought it would be, and I believe not as easy as the people who really care about them thought that it would be.
Gotcha.
Like I could just make the decision like that, and it's not. The law tells me different.